I was the backbone of a Fortune 500 empire, 7 years of blood, sweat, and results. Then my boss promoted her instead of me, a 25-year-old with 0 scars, 0 grit, and all my stolen ideas. They humiliated me in a conference room full of applause. I walked out silent, but I didn't quit. I built my own company from a laptop on my apartment floor. Quiet, ruthless, unstoppable. I watched their clients jump ship, their stock crash, their empire collapse, while mine rose. This is the raw, real story of betrayal, revenge, and the sweetest victory no one saw coming. They underestimated me. Big mistake. Hit play if you want the full truth.
I can still smell the coffee in that conference room. Burnt, cheap corporate drip that someone always left brewing too long. It hung in the air like regret. That Thursday in May, the Chicago sun was brutal, bouncing off the glass towers, turning the 42nd floor of Apex Dynamics into a greenhouse of ambition and anxiety. I'd worn my power heels, the black ones with the red soles that cost more than my first month's rent in this city. They clicked with purpose down the hallway because I knew today was the day. 7 years. 7 goddamn years of showing up earlier than everyone, leaving later than everyone, swallowing every insult disguised as feedback, turning around 3 dying divisions when the board was ready to gut them. I'd rebuilt the Midwest supply chain from a dumpster fire into a profit machine. I'd negotiated contracts that saved the company 8 figures during the last recession. Victor Lang, my boss, the man who signed my checks and called me kid, even though I was 38, had looked me dead in the eye during my performance review 3 months earlier and said the words I'd been waiting to hear. "You're the future of this company, Elena. The VP of Operations role, it's yours. Just keep doing what you're doing." I believed him, not because I trusted him. Victor was a snake in a Tom Ford suit, but because the numbers didn't lie, and I had them tattooed on my soul. My dashboard was green across the board. My team worshipped me quietly. Even the old guard guys who still called me sweetheart in the elevator had started shutting up when I walked into meetings. I had earned this. The all-hands email landed at 2:47 p.m. Subject line: Special Leadership Announcement, Conference Room A, 3 p.m. No agenda, no attachments, just that sterile corporate urgency that makes your stomach twist. I closed my laptop, smoothed my blazer, and walked in smiling. I was ready to shake hands, accept congratulations, maybe crack a joke about finally getting the office with the better view. The room was already half full, people nodding, murmuring. Victor stood at the front like a game show host, arms crossed, that practiced half grin plastered on. Next to him was Sarah Klein.
Sarah Klein, 25, 6 months out of Kellogg. Perfect blowout, pearl earrings, the kind of fresh scrubbed confidence that only comes from never having failed publicly. She'd been assigned to shadow me for the last quarter. My idea, actually. I thought mentoring the next generation was part of paying it forward. She'd sat in on my calls, taken notes furiously, asked smart enough questions. I'd even let her present one of my quarterly reviews to the board because she was nervous about public speaking. She'd thanked me in front of everyone. "Elena's been an incredible mentor," she'd said, hand over heart like we were in a sorority video. Now she stood beside Victor in a cream sheath dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, smiling like she'd just been crowned. Victor cleared his throat. The room hushed. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," he began, voice smooth as oil. "As you know, we've been evaluating our leadership structure to ensure we're positioned for the next phase of growth. After careful consideration, I'm thrilled to announce that our new Vice President of Operations is Sarah Klein." The applause started polite, scattered, then picked up because people follow cues. I felt it hit me like a slap, sharp, hot, disorienting. My smile stayed frozen on my face because muscle memory is a cruel thing. I clapped too, 3 slow claps. Then I stopped. Victor kept talking, something about Sarah's fresh perspective, her innovative mindset, how she represented the bold new direction Apex is taking. He never once looked at me. Not once. Sarah stepped forward, cheeks flushed, voice bright. "I'm so honored. I couldn't have done this without the incredible foundation laid by this team, especially Elena, who's taught me so much." The room awed. Someone even said, "Well said," like we were at a wedding toast. I felt the heat crawl up my neck. My hands were shaking so hard I had to clasp them behind my back. Victor finally glanced my way. Just a flicker, half a second. In that look, I saw everything. Satisfaction, relief, the tiniest edge of guilt that he immediately drowned in self-congratulation. He'd chosen her, not me. The girl who still needed Google to spell logistics optimization. The girl who'd taken my slides, my strategies, my late-night rewrites, and repackaged them with Canva graphics and buzzwords.
Sarah Klein, 25, 6 months out of Kellogg. Perfect blowout, pearl earrings, the kind of fresh scrubbed confidence that only comes from never having failed publicly. She'd been assigned to shadow me for the last quarter. My idea, actually. I thought mentoring the next generation was part of paying it forward. She'd sat in on my calls, taken notes furiously, asked smart enough questions. I'd even let her present one of my quarterly reviews to the board because she was nervous about public speaking. She'd thanked me in front of everyone. "Alina's been an incredible mentor," she'd said, hand over heart like we were in a sorority video. Now she stood beside Victor in a cream sheath dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, smiling like she'd just been crowned. Victor cleared his throat. The room hushed. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," he began, voice smooth as oil. "As you know, we've been evaluating our leadership structure to ensure we're positioned for the next phase of growth. After careful consideration, I'm thrilled to announce that our new Vice President of Operations is Sarah Klein." The applause started polite, scattered, then picked up because people follow cues. I felt it hit me like a slap, sharp, hot, disorienting. My smile stayed frozen on my face because muscle memory is a cruel thing. I clapped too, 3 slow claps. Then I stopped. Victor kept talking. Something about Sarah's fresh perspective, her innovative mindset, how she represented the bold new direction Apex is taking. He never once looked at me. Not once. Sarah stepped forward, cheeks flushed, voice bright. "I'm so honored. I couldn't have done this without the incredible foundation laid by this team, especially Elena, who's taught me so much." The room awed. Someone even said, "Well said," like we were at a wedding toast. I felt the heat crawl up my neck. My hands were shaking so hard I had to clasp them behind my back. Victor finally glanced my way. Just a flicker, half a second. In that look, I saw everything. Satisfaction, relief, the tiniest edge of guilt that he immediately drowned in self-congratulation. He'd chosen her, not me. The girl who still needed Google to spell logistics optimization. The girl who'd taken my slides, my strategies, my late-night rewrites, and repackaged them with Canva graphics and buzzwords. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my badge on the floor like they do in the movies. I just turned and walked out, heels echoing like gunshots down the marble corridor, past the reception desk where the admin gave me that pitying half smile, past the break room where 2 junior analysts stopped talking when they saw my face, into the elevator, alone. The doors closed. I stared at my reflection in the brushed steel. Same sharp jaw, same dark eyes, same red lipstick that hadn't smudged even though my world had just imploded. I looked calm. I looked like nothing had happened. But inside, I was screaming. I didn't go home right away. I walked. Downtown Chicago in late spring is alive. Tourists taking selfies at the Bean, guys in Cubs hats yelling about the game, women in yoga pants power walking with strollers. Normal life. I hated it. I hated how the city kept moving while mine had stopped. Eventually, I ended up at my apartment in River North. Tiny, overpriced, perfect view of the river if you angled your head just right. I kicked off my heels, poured a double bourbon, neat, and sat on the floor with my back against the couch because standing felt like too much effort. My phone buzzed. Texts from colleagues. "You okay?" That was bullshit. Did not see that coming. "Let me know if you want to grab drinks and talk trash." I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I opened my laptop. The screen glowed blue in the dim room. I stared at the blank document for a long minute, cursor blinking like it was daring me. Then I typed 3 words. "They will regret this." I hit enter. Then I typed more. I wrote down every promise Victor had ever made me, every meeting where he'd praised my work in front of the C-suite, every time he told me to hang tight while they finalized the announcement. I wrote the dates, the quotes, the emails I could still pull from my inbox. Then I opened a new tab, Delaware Division of Corporations, business name search, Vanguard Rise LLC. The first 2 weeks after the announcement felt like walking on broken glass in bare feet. Every step hurt, but I couldn't let anyone see me limp. I showed up at 7:15 a.m. every morning, same as always, coffee in hand, badge clipped to my blazer, smile dialed to professional warmth. I sat in meetings where Sarah now ran point on agendas I'd written. I answered her questions patiently, even when they were things I'd explained to her 3 times before. "Elena, quick one. How do we handle the freight variance on the Ohio route again?" she'd ask, voice sweet, like she was asking for a favor between friends. I'd walk her through it step by step, voice level, while my nails dug half moons into my palms under the conference table. Inside, I was cataloging everything, every single thing. When Victor sent the company-wide email praising Sarah's seamless transition and immediate impact, I screenshotted it. When he CC'd the entire executive team on her first big presentation, my old Q3 turnaround plan with a new title slide and pastel color scheme, I saved the attachment, the email thread, the timestamps. When Sarah casually dropped in conversation that she'd reimagined the vendor scorecard I'd spent 6 months perfecting, I opened my notes app and typed, date, June 12th, claimed ownership of scorecard V3, original authorship, Elena Reyes, created March 2020, evidence, Git commit history plus original email chain to Victor. I wasn't being petty. I was being surgical. Because in corporate America, rage without receipts is just noise. And I wasn't about to be dismissed as emotional or bitter. No, if this went nuclear, and part of me already knew it would, I wanted the blast radius to be precise. I wanted names, dates, documents. I wanted a paper trail so airtight it could stand up in court or a boardroom. So I played the part. Perfectly. I even bought her a fucking plant, a peace lily in a sleek white ceramic pot. I left it on her new desk, the one that used to be mine, with a little card. "Congrats again, Sarah. Excited to see what you build. Elena." She posted a photo of it on LinkedIn the next day with the caption, "Grateful for amazing mentors who set you up to succeed. Hashtag new beginnings. Hashtag women supporting women." The likes rolled in. I scrolled past it without liking. My thumb hovered, then moved on. Nights were different. After the office lights dimmed and the cleaning crew started their rounds, I'd stay late. Not because I had work to do. My new transition support role had been stripped of anything meaningful, but because the building was quiet, and quiet let me think. I'd sit in the dim glow of my monitor, door closed, and start building the real plan. First, Vanguard Rise LLC. I'd registered it that first night, but now I went deeper. Delaware filing complete. EIN secured from the IRS website at 1:47 a.m. Business bank account opened online with a digital-only bank. No branches, no small talk, no awkward questions about why a senior director at a Fortune 500 was starting something on the side. I transferred $5,000 from my personal savings, the emergency fund I'd built after my divorce 5 years earlier. It felt like blood money, but necessary. Next, domain. VanguardRise.com was taken by some defunct consulting firm in Florida. I bought VanguardRise.co instead, then Vanguard-Rise.com, VanguardRise.io, even the .ventures version. I parked them all and pointed them to a simple landing page I slapped together with Squarespace at 3 a.m. Black background, white text, one line. Building the future, differently. No logo yet, no team photo, just mystery, just enough to feel real. I started reaching out, not loudly, not desperately, quietly. Old clients I'd personally closed years ago, procurement directors who still texted me when their shipments went sideways, CEOs who'd thanked me by name in board meetings. I kept it casual. "Hey Mike, hope you're well. Just checking in. Heard things might be shifting at Apex. If you ever need an independent set of eyes on supply chain, I'm around. No pressure." Most replied politely. A few said, "Actually, yeah, let's talk." The first real bite came from a mid-sized manufacturer in Milwaukee. They'd been with Apex for 8 years. I'd saved their ass during the 2020 port backlog by rerouting everything through Savannah instead of LA. Now their new account manager, some kid fresh out of college, was ghosting them on a delayed container. They emailed me at 8:42 p.m. on a Wednesday. "Elena, we're getting screwed here. Can you consult? Off the books for now?" I quoted them $7,500 for a 30-day engagement. They wired it the next morning. That money didn't go into my personal account. It went straight to Vanguard Rise. I opened QuickBooks, set up categories, marketing, Domain names, legal, LLC fees, operations, a new laptop I bought with cash so Apex IT couldn't track it. Every dollar had a purpose. Every transaction was clean. Victor called me into his office on a Friday afternoon, week 3 post-announcement. The blinds were half closed, late afternoon sun striping the carpet. He leaned back in his chair, sleeves rolled, looking like a man who'd already won. "Elena," he started, voice warm, paternal, "you've been handling this transition beautifully. Sarah's really hitting the ground running, and a lot of that is thanks to you. We need you to keep mentoring her. Full access. Your files, your contacts, your playbooks, everything. She's the future, but you're the foundation." I nodded slowly. "Of course, anything for the team." He smiled, satisfied. "That's what I like to hear. Loyalty. That's rare." I smiled back, thin, controlled. Loyalty's important. What he didn't know, what he would never know until it was too late, was that I'd already started moving my most valuable assets out the door, not stealing, redirecting. Relationships aren't company property. Knowledge isn't either, not when it lives in your head. I'd spent years building trust with people who trusted me, not Apex, and trust doesn't come with a non-compete clause. That night, I sat on my balcony, overlooking the Chicago River, glass of Cabernet in hand, watching the water lights dance. My phone buzzed. Another text from an old client in Detroit. "Elena, can we hop on a quick call next week? Things are getting messy here."
I typed back, "Absolutely. Name the time." Then I opened my laptop again. New document. Title, Vanguard Rise, Phase 1 Milestones. I listed them out, cold and clear. Secure first 3 independent contracts. Hire first contractor, former Apex analyst who'd been laid off last year. Build minimum viable service offering. Stay invisible at Apex until the moment is right. I saved it, closed the lid. The rage was still there, hot, constant, like a pilot light that never went out. But it wasn't wild anymore. It was focused, sharp, useful. They thought they'd humiliated me into submission. They'd just given me time to load the gun. And when I pulled the trigger, no one would hear it coming.
3 months after the announcement, the shine was starting to wear off Sarah's crown, and I could smell it from across the open plan floor like cheap perfume gone sour. Apex Dynamics wasn't collapsing, not yet, but the warning lights were flickering. Sarah's flagship innovation, the supply chain overhaul she'd pitched to the board with glossy slides and buzzwords like disruptive agility and next-gen resilience, was my 2-year-old playbook. I'd built it during the height of COVID chaos, rerouting car calls, dual sourcing maps, contingency buffers for every major port. She'd taken the bones, slapped on a fresh coat of corporate jargon, and presented it as revolutionary. The board ate it up. Victor gave her a standing ovation in the executive summary email. But she'd skipped the boring parts, the risk assessments, the stress tests, the quiet conversations with vendors who told me flat out, "We can't absorb another 15% cost hike without walking." Sarah didn't listen to those voices. She didn't need to. She had Victor's blessing and a shiny new title. First sign of trouble, a small but critical vendor out of Gary, Indiana, steel coils we needed for our Midwest assembly lines, sent a terse email to the procurement team. Due to unaddressed pricing escalations and delayed payments, we're placing Apex on credit hold effective immediately. Sarah forwarded it to me at 9:14 a.m. with a single line. "Elena, thoughts? This seems urgent." I stared at the screen for a full minute before replying. Thoughts? Yeah, I had thoughts. I had spreadsheets, exact scenario. I had negotiation notes where I'd locked in fixed pricing for 18 months. I had the vendor cell number saved under emergency steel guy, don't lose.
But I didn't send any of that. Instead, I typed back, "Happy to jump on a call with them. Send me the latest vendor agreement and payment history." She did. Within an hour, I had the full folder, and buried in the attachments was the first real gift they'd handed me, a revised pricing addendum Sarah had signed off on 2 months earlier. She'd agreed to a 12% increase without running it through finance or legal, violating internal policy. Worse, the numbers in her justification memo didn't match the vendor's actual invoice. She'd inflated the projected savings by $1.2 million to make her transformation look sexier for the quarterly review. I didn't forward it to compliance. Not yet. I saved it to an encrypted external drive I kept in a safe at home. Then I made a copy in a password-protected Dropbox folder labeled Personal Archives, Tax Docs. Clean, deniable, bulletproof. Meanwhile, the bleeding continued quietly. Another vendor in Ohio dropped us for unreliable forecasting and inconsistent communication. A third, our biggest paper supplier in Wisconsin, extended lead times from 4 weeks to 12. Production lines started idling. Margins slipped 8% in Q2. Victor called it temporary market turbulence in the leadership huddle. Sarah nodded along, blaming legacy constraints and resistance to change. I sat in the back row, silent, taking notes. I kept my head down at the office, but the side work was accelerating. Those quiet outreach texts I'd sent were paying off. The Milwaukee manufacturer signed a 6-month consulting retainer at $15K per month. A logistics firm in Detroit hired me for a one-off audit, $22K wired in 48 hours. I was pulling in close to $80K on the side in just 3 months, all funneled into Vanguard Rise. No Apex resources used, no company laptop, no company time, technically. I did the calls from coffee shops or my car during lunch breaks, voice notes transcribed on my personal phone. Then came the night that shifted everything from slow burn to live wire.
It was a Tuesday, 11:03 p.m. My phone lit up on the nightstand. Sarah's name. I almost let it go to voicemail, almost, but curiosity won. Elena? Her voice was high, shaky. I'm so sorry to call this late. The Chicago vendor, the big one, Midwest Steel, they're threatening to walk tomorrow if we don't wire payment by noon. Victor's losing it. He told me to fix it tonight. Can you jump on a quick call? I need your help. I sat up in bed, heart rate climbing, but my voice stayed calm, almost kind. Of course. Send me the latest numbers, the invoice, the contract, the correspondence chain. I'll review and call you back in 15. She sent the Dropbox link immediately. I opened it on my laptop in the dark, the blue light carving shadows across my face. There it was again, the smoking gun. In the justification docs she'd attached for Victor, she'd attached my original 2021 risk assessment, but with edits. T risk scores lowered from high to medium, projected cost overruns scrubbed out, a handwritten note in the margin, her handwriting, optimistic scenario adopted per SLK, Sarah Lynn Klein. She'd forged the risk profile to greenlight her changes, traceable, timestamped, in writing. I didn't screenshot it. I downloaded the entire folder. Then I opened a blank email to myself, subject line, backup, Midwest Steel, 0718. Attached everything, sent it. Deleted the sent copy from my outbox. Paranoid? Maybe. Smart? Definitely. I called her back at 11:22 p.m. Okay, Sarah, I said, voice steady. Here's what we do. Call the vendor first thing tomorrow, 7 a.m. their time. Apologize, reference the original fixed price clause from 2021, offer to split the difference on the disputed amount as a one-time goodwill payment. They'll take it. They want to keep the business. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for hours. God, thank you, Elena. You're a lifesaver. I owe you. I let the silence hang for a beat. No problem. Team effort. I hung up, stared at the ceiling.
She owed me nothing, but she'd just given me leverage I hadn't even asked for. Outside my window, the Chicago River glittered under the streetlights. Traffic hummed on the bridge below. Normal city noise. But inside my apartment, something had cracked open wider. The rage wasn't quiet anymore. It was humming, electric, purposeful. I opened my laptop again. New folder, evidence, phase 2. I dragged the Midwest Steel files in. Then I started drafting an email I wasn't ready to send yet, to a contact on the board audit committee. Subject, concerns regarding recent operational decisions. I didn't hit send. Not tonight. But the draft sat there, cursor blinking in the body, waiting. Like me. They thought the cracks were small, temporary. They had no idea how deep I was about to carve. 6 months to the day after Sarah Klein took my title, Victor Lang finally pulled the trigger on the move he'd been rehearsing in his head since that conference room announcement. It was a crisp October morning, the kind where the wind off Lake Michigan cuts through your coat and reminds winter is coming whether you're ready or not. I walked into the office at 7:20 a.m., same routine, same black coffee, same polite nod to the security guard who still called me Miss Reyes like nothing had changed. Everything had changed. Victor's assistant pinged me at 9:03. Victor would like to see you in his office, now. I didn't rush.
I finished the email I was drafting, a quiet proposal to a logistics client in Cleveland who'd been quietly shopping for a new partner, then closed my laptop, smoothed my blazer, and walked the long hallway to the corner suite. The glass walls let everyone see who was going in. Heads turned. Whispers followed. They knew something was up. Victor was standing when I entered. No seat offered. Just him, arms crossed, looking out at the gray skyline like he was delivering bad news to the city itself. "Elena," he started, not turning around at first. "Close the door." I did. The click felt final. He turned. Face neutral, practiced. "We're restructuring the operations group. Effective immediately, Sarah will assume full oversight of your former division as well. The Midwest and Great Lakes portfolios are consolidating under her." I waited. There had to be more. "Your role," he continued, "is being redefined. We're moving you to advisory capacity. Strategic support. You'll report directly to me. No direct reports, no P&L responsibility. Focus on high-level guidance, knowledge transfer, special projects as assigned." Advisory. The corporate equivalent of a padded cell. No team, no budget, no real decisions. Just enough title to keep you from screaming demotion on LinkedIn, but stripped of everything that made the job worth the 80-hour weeks. I let the silence stretch. After everything I've built here? Victor finally met my eyes. There was no apology in them, just calculation. "Business is business, Elena. Sarah's delivering results. The board likes momentum. You've been invaluable, but we need to keep the train moving forward." Results, right. The Q3 numbers had come in that morning. Revenue flat, margins down another 3%. 2 more key vendors on 60-day notice, end of day. Same base, obviously. We're not cutting pay. We value you. Value. The word tasted like rust. I walked out without another word. Past the bullpen where people pretended not to watch. Past Sarah's office, door open, her laughing on a call, feet up on what used to be my desk. I didn't look in. That afternoon, the offer letter landed in my inbox. 23 pages of legalese. Title: Senior Strategic Advisor, Operations. Reporting to: Victor Lang, EVP. Direct reports: none. Bonus eligibility: discretionary. Non-compete: still active for 12 months post-termination. I printed it, highlighted the bullshit parts in yellow. Then I shredded it. I didn't quit that day. Quitting would have been too clean, too predictable. They'd spin it as Elena chose to leave, and Sarah would get another plant from some suck-up. No, I needed time. I needed runway. So I accelerated everything. That night, I sat cross-legged on my living room floor, laptop open, takeout tie forgotten beside me. Vanguard Rise was no longer a side project. It was oxygen. I finalized the operating agreement with a lawyer I'd found on Upwork, $1,200 floor fee, discreet, no questions. I trademarked Vanguard Rise with the USPTO, another $350 I didn't blink at. I built out the website properly now. Clean black and gold design, tagline, precision without politics, services listed, supply chain optimization, vendor strategy, crisis turnarounds. No client names yet, just case studies with numbers fudged enough to be anonymous, but real enough to impress. I started pitching directly. No more soft check-ins. Cold, targeted emails to decision makers I'd known for years. Subject: not another quarter of the same problems. Body: hi James, it's Elena Reyes. I know Apex has been your partner for a decade, but I also know lead times are up 40% and your CFO is asking questions. I've left to start something new. Vanguard Rise. Same playbook that saved your ass in 2020, but without the bureaucracy and broken promises. Interested in a no-strings 30-minute call? 2 replies came within hours. One from a packaging company in Indiana. Yes, tomorrow 10 a.m. The other from a food distributor in Minneapolis. We're in deep shit. Name your rate. I quoted high. They didn't flinch. By the end of the week, Vanguard Rise had 2 signed contracts totaling $87,000 in the first 90 days. I hired my first contractor, Maria. The brilliant Apex had laid off 6 months earlier when they optimized headcount. She jumped at the chance. I'm in, she texted back at 2:14 a.m. Screw them. We set up Slack, Google Workspace, a shared drive. No office, no water cooler drama, just work. At Apex, I kept showing up, smiling, mentoring Sarah when she asked, which was less and less.
documenting every pointless, strategic input meeting Victor dragged me into. I was a ghost in the machine, present, polite, invisible in all the ways that mattered. But the machine was starting to smoke. Apex lost another major client that month, the one I'd personally saved during the chip shortage. They didn't tell me why they left. They didn't have to. I got a thank you note from their VP of Ops. Elena, your new venture came at the perfect time. Looking forward to crushing it together.
Victor called an emergency leadership huddle the next Monday, attendance mandatory. He stood at the head of the table, sleeves rolled, pretending calm. "We're experiencing some client attrition," he said. "Nothing systemic, just a few relationships needing attention. Sarah's on it." Sarah nodded vigorously. "We're doubling down on relationship management." I sat in the back, silent. My phone buzzed under the table. Another contract notification. $45K upfront from the Minneapolis distributor. I didn't smile. Not outwardly, but inside, the quiet rage had turned into something colder, clearer. They'd thought they'd sidelined me. They'd just given me the keys to the escape hatch, and I was about to blow the hatch wide open. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened a blank slide deck. Title: Vanguard Rise, Year 1 Projection. I started typing numbers, real ones, scary ones, because the breaking point wasn't mine anymore. It was theirs, and they still had no idea it was coming. A year after they handed my future to Sarah Klein, Vanguard Rise stopped being a secret and started being a threat. I didn't announce it with fanfare. No press release, no LinkedIn post screaming, "I quit," no victory lap. I just existed. And existence, when you're doing it right, speaks louder than any announcement. We were 5 people now, all women, all former Apex casualties or near misses. Maria, the analyst they'd laid off, became my right hand, sharp as a blade, allergic to bullshit. Then came Priya, a procurement specialist who'd been passed over for promotion 3 times because she didn't fit the culture. Then Jenna, the data whiz who'd quietly built the dashboard Sarah now claimed as her own. Then Lisa, logistics veteran who'd walked out the day after Sarah tried to micromanage her team. And me, Elena Reyes, founder, CEO, whatever title felt least pretentious on any given day. We operated like ghosts. No office lease, just a virtual address in Delaware for the LLC paperwork, Slack channels instead of conference rooms, Zoom calls from home offices, coffee shops, even one from a laundromat when Jenna's Wi-Fi died. We use personal devices, encrypted drives, and a shared philosophy. Move fast, stay quiet, deliver undeniable value. Our first big win wasn't flashy. It was surgical. The packaging company in Indiana, the one that had replied to my cold email, gave us a 6-figure contract to overhaul their entire Midwest distribution network. We delivered in 90 days. 22% cost reduction, 40% faster lead times, 0 drama. They sent a testimonial email that read like love poetry. Elena and team did what Apex promised for years and never delivered. If you're still with them, run. Word spread the way it always does in tight industries. Quiet referrals, late-night texts, procurement managers venting over drinks. There's this new outfit, all women. They actually know what they're doing. Clients started coming to us, not because we advertised, because we performed. By month 12, Vanguard Rise had cleared $1.4 million in revenue. Lean, mean, profitable from day one. We paid ourselves modest salaries, enough to live, not enough to trigger lifestyle creep, and plowed the rest back in. Better software, a part-time bookkeeper, legal retainers for when Apex inevitably noticed. Because they were noticing. Apex was bleeding. Not a gush, a slow, steady hemorrhage that Victor kept calling transitional friction. 3 more major accounts had walked in the last quarter, the ones I'd personally nurtured for years. They didn't leave with drama, they just stopped renewing. Their exit interviews, the ones HR never shared, all said the same thing. Service declined, promise broken, new leadership out of touch. Victor blamed macro headwinds. Sarah blamed legacy systems. The board started asking harder questions in quarterly reviews. Stock price dipped 14% in 6 months. Analysts on CNBC started using words like leadership transition needed and client retention crisis. I watched it all from afar, not gloating, observing, like a general studying troop movements from a hill. I stayed visible enough at Apex to keep the peace.
I still had the senior strategic advisor title, still showed up for the occasional meeting Victor dragged me into. I answered emails, I gave polite input. I documented every interaction. Every time Victor asked me to brief Sarah on best practices, every time Sarah forwarded me a crisis and asked for quick thoughts. My personal archive folder was now 4.7 gigabytes of meticulously organized receipts. Emails, meeting notes, altered spreadsheets, performance reviews where Victor had once called me irreplaceable. I also started planting seeds publicly, subtle ones. A LinkedIn post, building something new, grateful for every lesson corporate America taught me, especially the ones that hurt the most. Women don't need permission to lead. We need space. And when we get it, watch out. It got 1,200 likes, a few comments from former colleagues. This you, Elena? I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Headhunters started calling. Competitors, real ones, not Apex, sent feelers. A private equity firm asked if I'd consult on a portfolio company turnaround. I said yes to the ones that aligned, no to the rest. Then Victor made his first real mistake. He sued one of our clients.
Not me directly, not yet. He sued the food distributor in Minneapolis for tortious interference and misappropriation of trade secrets, claimed we'd stolen proprietary Apex methodologies. The lawsuit named Vanguard Rise in the complaint, and because discovery is a bitch, it requested documents from me personally. My lawyer, a pit bull named Rachel who specialized in non-compete warfare, laughed when she read it. They have zero enforceable non-compete on you. You never signed the updated one after the restructure. And trade secrets? The methodologies they're crying about are industry standard. Plus, we have emails proving you built most of them before Sarah ever touched them. We didn't countersue. Not yet. We just responded to discovery with surgical precision. Every document they asked for, plus a few extras. Time-stamped originals showing Sarah's edits, Victor's approvals, the forged risk assessments. We buried them in exhibits. The client settled quietly, dropped the suit for a token payment and a mutual NDA. But the damage was done. Word leaked in industry circles. Apex was suing ex-employees' new ventures. Clients got nervous. Vendors hesitated. The perception shifted. Apex wasn't just struggling. It was desperate. I didn't celebrate. I doubled down. We hired 2 more people, expanded services to include crisis PR for supply chain blowups, landed a $300,000 contract with a Fortune 200 manufacturer who'd been with Apex for 15 years. Their COO told me on the kickoff call. Victor called me personally last week begging us to stay. I told him we already had a better partner. I thanked him. Didn't mention that I'd saved that relationship in 2019 when their plant flooded and Apex's response was radio silence. Nights were still long. I'd sit on my balcony after everyone else logged off, Chicago skyline glittering like it was daring me to blink. My phone would buzz. Another referral. Another contract notification. Another I'm in from a talented woman Apex had overlooked. The empire wasn't loud. It was quiet, efficient, inevitable. And every time I signed a new client, every time revenue ticked higher, every time I saw Sarah's name trending downward in industry forums, I felt the same thing. Not revenge, power. The kind they'd tried to take from me, the kind I'd taken back, piece by quiet, ruthless piece. They still thought I was on the sidelines. They had no idea I'd already built the stadium. And the game? It was about to get interesting. 18 months after they handed Sarah the crown I'd bled for, Apex Dynamics' quarterly earnings call became the public execution I'd never asked for, but damn if it didn't feel earned. It was a Wednesday in November, gray Chicago sky pressing down on the city like a hangover. I wasn't on the call. I didn't need to be. I watched the live stream from my apartment, laptop on the coffee table, mug of black coffee gone cold beside me. Vanguard Rise had just closed its best month yet, $420K in new contracts, 2 more hires, a pipeline so full we were turning away small fish. I could have been anywhere, closing deals, celebrating with the team, but I chose to watch this, because some endings deserve an audience. The call started at 8:30 a.m. sharp, Victor laying at the helm, tie knotted too tight, voice pitched for confidence he didn't feel. Sarah sat to his right in a navy blazer, hair perfect, smile practiced. The board members were visible in their little Zoom squares, stone-faced, arms crossed. Analysts from Goldman, Morgan Stanley, a couple of hedge fund guys who'd been shorting the stock for weeks. Victor opened with the script.
We're navigating a challenging macro environment with resilience and focus. Translation, shit's bad, but please don't panic. He rattled off numbers. Revenue down 11% year over year. Operating margins compressed to 4.2%. Client churn at historic highs. He blamed supply chain disruptions, inflation, transitory headwinds. The word transitory got used 6 times in the first 10 minutes. Then the Q&A started. First analyst, a woman from Barclays with a voice like gravel. Victor, client attrition has accelerated in the last 2 quarters. Can you walk us through the root causes and what specific actions leadership is taking to reverse it? Victor leaned in. Great question. We've seen some legacy relationships naturally run their course as we pivot to a more innovative operating model. Sarah and the team are aggressively rebuilding those relationships with fresh approaches. Sarah nodded on cue. Absolutely. We're prioritizing data-driven strategies and modern vendor partnerships. Early indicators are positive. The analyst didn't buy it. Positive? Your largest Midwest client, the packaging group, left in Q3. That was an $18 million annual contract. Walk us through that one. Silence. Victor's smile froze. Sarah's eyes flicked to him. We're not going to litigate individual client decisions on this call, Victor said too quickly. Suffice it to say, we're refocusing on high-growth segments. Next question, from a hedge fund guy who didn't bother hiding his skepticism. There are rumors of internal discord, leadership turnover concerns. Any comment on reports that key talent has exited and taken relationships with them? Victor's jaw tightened. Talent moves happen in every organization. We remain confident in our bench strength. The call dragged on. Stock ticker in the corner, down 7%, then 12%, then 18% as the questions kept coming. No one asked about me by name. They didn't have to. Everyone in the industry knew. Behind the scenes, the real bomb had already been dropped. 2 weeks earlier, I'd gotten a call from a board member I'd known since my second year at Apex. Tom Hargrove, mid-60s, silver hair, the kind of quiet power that doesn't need to shout. We'd crossed paths on enough strategy retreats for him to trust me when I spoke plainly. He called on a Sunday afternoon. Private line, no assistant. Elena, he said, off the record. What the hell happened over there? I didn't hesitate. I'd been waiting for this exact moment. I sent him the folder. Not everything, not yet, but enough. A curated zip file, the original 2021 risk assessments versus Sarah's edited versions. Timestamped emails where Victor approved the changes without review. Performance reviews where he'd called my work mission critical. Screenshots of Sarah's LinkedIn claiming credit for projects I'd led. The Midwest Steel forged memo, the pricing addendum she'd signed without authorization. Even a few off-color comments Victor had made in private Slack channels about fresh faces being less baggage. I titled the folder, For Your Eyes Only, Operational Integrity Concerns. Tom didn't reply that day, or the next. But 48 hours later, the board announced an independent internal review of recent operational and financial reporting practices. No names, no details, just enough to send the stock sliding another 5% pre-market. Victor called me the next morning, voice low, urgent. Elena, we need to talk. Off the record. I let it ring twice before picking up. Victor. Listen, he started. No preamble. I know things have been tense, but we're in a tough spot. The board's breathing down on necks. If you have any insight into what's driving the client losses, now's the time. I almost laughed. Insight? You were there longer than anyone. You know the relationships. Help us stabilize. Maybe consult, discreetly. I let the silence stretch. You want me to consult for Apex? Exactly. You know the playbook. We'll make it worth your while. I pictured him in his corner office, blinds half closed, tie loosened for once, desperate. I'll think about it, I said. Then I hung up. That night, the earnings call imploded in slow motion. Analysts pressed harder. Victor stammered. Sarah looked smaller in her square. When the call ended, the stock closed down 22%. CNBC ran a segment titled Apex Dynamics, Leadership Crisis. They showed old photos of Victor at investor days, looking invincible. They showed nothing of me. They didn't need to. The next morning, my phone buzzed with notifications. Industry forums lighting up. Apex is done. Sarah's a figurehead. Wonder if Elena Reyes is behind this. I didn't respond to any of it. Instead, I opened Vanguard Rise's shared drive. New folder. Acquisition targets Q1. We were ready to start buying, not just growing. The first target, a small boutique consultancy in Detroit that had once competed with Apex. Their owner had emailed me last month. "If you're ever looking to scale, let's talk." I replied, "Let's talk now."
Across town, Apex was in free fall. Victor and Sarah were in damage control meetings. The board was circling. And me? I was sitting on my balcony, watching the sun rise over the lake, coffee hot this time. The boardroom bombshell hadn't been loud, it had been precise. And the fallout? It was just beginning. They'd underestimated what happens when you give a woman time, evidence, and nothing left to lose. Now, they were about to learn exactly how much that costs.
It happened on a Tuesday in early December, the kind of gray, bone-chilling Chicago morning where the wind whips off the lake and makes every coat feel useless. I was in a coffee shop on Michigan Avenue, neutral territory, no Apex logo in sight, when my phone lit up with notifications. Not texts, not emails, Bloomberg alerts, CNBC push notifications, LinkedIn trending. Apex Dynamics Executive Chairman and EVP of Operations Victor Lang escorted from headquarters amid fraud investigation. I sat my latte down. Slowly. My hands didn't shake. They hadn't in months. The article dropped at 9:17 a.m. Security footage leaked within minutes. Victor in his charcoal suit, tie still knotted, flanked by two board-hired investigators in plain dark jackets. No handcuffs, just the slow, humiliating walk past the reception desk he'd strutted by for 20 years. Employees stood frozen in the lobby, phones out, recording. Someone caught his face in profile, jaw clenched, eyes forward. The smug confidence finally cracked. Sarah resigned 2 hours later. Press release was curt. Sarah Klein has decided to pursue new opportunities to focus on personal growth and family. No mention of the investigation. No graceful exit interview. Just gone. Her LinkedIn updated by 11:45 a.m. Headline changed to Independent Consultant, Supply Chain and Operations Strategist, Open to Opportunities. The cream dress photo was still there, but the Apex tag was scrubbed.
The company's stock cratered 31% in pre-market, then another 12% after the opening bell. Trading halted twice. Analysts called it the beginning of the end unless drastic changes are made. The board issued a statement. "We are committed to restoring stakeholder confidence through full cooperation with regulators and a thorough review of all practices." I didn't cheer. I didn't text the team. I just sat there, watching the ticker bleed red on my phone screen, and felt something settle deep in my chest. Not joy, not vengeance, but closure. The kind you earn after years of holding your breath. That afternoon, I walked to my new office. Not the tiny River North apartment anymore. We'd leased a sleek, glass-walled space on the 18th floor of a building in the Loop. Lake Michigan view, exposed brick accents, a conference room we called the War Room. My name was already etched on the door. Elena Reyes, founder and CEO, Vanguard Rice. The team was there when I arrived. Maria had pulled up the live stock feed on the big screen. Priya was refreshing news alerts. Jenna had a bottle of champagne chilling in the fridge. Non-alcoholic for the pregnant one, real for the rest. They looked at me when I walked in. No one spoke for a beat. Then Maria broke the silence. "You see it?" I nodded. I saw. Jenna raised her glass. "To the empire that didn't need them." We clinked. Laughed. Not loud. Not triumphant. Just relieved. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Elena?" Victor's voice. Hoarse. Smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Victor." A long exhale. I didn't expect this. None of us did. I didn't reply. "Look," he continued, words tumbling now. "The board's talking about receivership if we don't stabilize fast. We need expertise. You know the systems better than anyone. Maybe you could consult? Help us turn this around? Name your price. We'll make it right." I stared out the window at the frozen lake. The city kept moving below. Cars, people, life. Apex was dying, and he was calling me to save it. I let the silence stretch until it hurt. "No," I said finally, quiet, final. "Elena." "Good luck, Victor."
I hung up. The line went dead. I didn't block the number. I didn't need to. He wouldn't call again. That night, the news cycle exploded. WSJ ran a deep dive, how Apex Dynamics lost its way from industry leader to scandal. They quoted anonymous sources, former employees, vendors, even one board member who said off record, "We ignored too many red flags because the numbers looked good on paper." They didn't name me, but they didn't have to. The timeline was there. The promotion announcement, the client exodus, the forged reports, the quiet rise of a new consultancy that seemed to scoop up every departing account.
Vanguard Rise wasn't mentioned by name in most outlets, yet, but industry insiders knew. My inbox filled with inbound inquiries, reporters asking for comment, headhunters offering bigger roles elsewhere, competitors wanting to partner. I replied to none of them. Not yet. Instead, I opened the acquisition folder again. We were closing on the Detroit boutique firm next week, $2.8 million cash and stock. Their client list would double our footprint overnight. We'd already signed letters of intent with 2 more small players in logistics tech. Growth wasn't revenge. It was inevitability. The next morning, I got another call, this one from the new interim CEO the board had appointed, a turnaround specialist named Marcus Hale. Mid-50s, no nonsense, reputation for slashing and rebuilding. "Elena," he said, "I've read the file. I know what happened. I'm not calling to apologize for them. I'm calling because we need you back. VP of Operations, full authority, double your old salary, equity grant that vests immediately. You set the terms." I leaned back in my chair, feet on the desk, watching snow start to fall outside. "Marcus," I said, "thank you, but I'm good." Silence on his end. Then, "You built something out there. I respect that, but Apex is still a name, a platform. You could fix it, leave your mark twice." "I already left my mark," I told him, "twice. Once when I built their machine, once when I built my own." He laughed, short, rueful. "Fair. If you ever change your mind." "I won't." I hung up. That evening, the team gathered in the war room. Pizza boxes open, laptops closed for once. We talked about the next quarter, the hires we needed, the holiday party we'd never had time for before. Someone put on music, low, soulful R&B. We laughed about old Apex stories, the ridiculous ones. Victor's motivational speeches, Sarah's endless Canva presentations. No one gloated. We didn't need to, because the fall wasn't about them crashing. It was about us rising. And as the city lights flickered on across the lake, I realized something simple. They'd thought they broke me that Thursday in conference room A. Instead, they'd set me free. Victor? Last I heard, he was holed up in a condo in the suburbs, consulting for a failing startup in Ohio that paid half what he used to make. Sarah? She'd rebranded as a personal branding coach on Instagram, motivational reels about pivoting with grace. Neither ever reached out again. They didn't have to. Their empire had collapsed. Mine was just getting started. And the view from up here? It was beautiful. The call came on a Friday afternoon in late January, snow still clinging to the edges of the Chicago sidewalks, the city wrapped in that post-holiday quiet where everyone pretends they're not exhausted. I was in the war room at Vanguard Rise, glass walls fogged from the radiator, whiteboards covered in acquisition timelines, the smell of fresh espresso cutting through the air. Maria was on speaker with our new Detroit office, walking through integration plans. Priya was mocking up a pitch deck for a potential Series A investor. We were moving fast, but controlled. Always controlled. My phone vibrated on the conference table. Caller ID, Apex Dynamics, Interim CEO Office. I glanced at it, then at the team. They froze mid-sentence. I hit accept, put it on speaker. No secrets here. Elena Reyes? A brief pause, then a deep, measured voice. Marcus Hale, the turnaround guy the board had parachuted in after Victor's walk of shame. Elena? Marcus Hale. Hope I'm not catching you at a bad time? I leaned back in my chair, feet up on the edge of the table. Not at all. What's on your mind? Straight to it. No small talk, no flattery. I respected that. I've been reviewing the last 18 months. The board asked me to be thorough.
I've seen the client exodus, the altered reports, the internal emails. I know exactly what happened, and I know you were at the center of what worked before it all went sideways. I didn't respond. Let him keep going. Apex is wounded, badly. Stock's down 68% from its peak. 3 more major accounts are on 30-day notice. Regulators are sniffing around the financials. The board wants a reset, real leadership, not another interim fix. They authorized me to make you an offer. He paused, like he was giving me space to get excited. I wasn't. VP of Operations, full P&L responsibility for the entire supply chain and operations division, reporting only to me and the board. Base salary double what you were making before the restructure, $650K plus bonus target of 150%. Equity grant 1.2 million restricted shares vesting over 3 years, accelerated on change of control. Full relocation if you want it, though I assume you're staying in Chicago. You set the team structure, you set the strategy. You get to rebuild what you built the first time, only this time with real authority and no politics holding you back. The room was dead silent. Maria's eyes were wide. Priya had stopped typing. Even the Detroit line went quiet. Marcus kept going. We need you, Alina. Not as a consultant, as the person who turns this around. You know the playbook. You know the people. You know where the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively. Come back. Fix it. Leave your mark twice. The board will back you 100%. I let the offer hang in the air like smoke. I could picture him in Victor's old corner office, blinds open now, no more half-closed secrecy, staring at the lake, waiting for my yes. I glanced around the room, at the team who'd followed me out of the wreckage, at the whiteboard with our next quarter's revenue target already crossed out because we'd beaten it 2 weeks early, at the framed photo on the shelf, all of us at our first offsite, laughing over cheap wine in a rented Airbnb, no Apex logo in sight. I smiled, small, private. Marcus, I said finally, I appreciate the call, and I appreciate the transparency. That's more than I ever got from Victor. He chuckled, low, fair. But I'm going to pass. Silence again, longer this time. Can I ask why? He said. I stood up, walked to the window. Snowflakes drifted past, lazy and perfect. Because Vanguard Rise just closed a $12 million Series A round yesterday, term sheet signed at 4:47 p.m. We're acquiring our third competitor next month, a logistics tech firm out of Cleveland that's got proprietary routing AI we've been eyeing for a year. We're at 42 employees, growing 180% year over year. We're profitable, we're debt-free, and every single person here chose to be here. No titles dangled like carrots, no promises broken. Just work, results, respect. I turned back to the room. The team was watching me, not breathing. I built something, I continued. From nothing, from betrayal, from nights when I didn't know if the next client would pay or ghost. And I did it without begging for permission, without waiting for a board to approve my worth. I don't want to go back and fix Apex. I want to keep building what's already winning. Marcus exhaled. Not angry, resigned, maybe even impressed. Understood. I had to try. You're one of the few who could actually pull it off. I already did, I said. Just not for you. He laughed again, genuine this time. Touché. If things change on your end, doors open. It won't. I hung up. The room erupted. Cheers. Hugs. Someone popped the champagne we'd been saving for the Series A close. Maria yelled to never going back. Priya started a slow clap that turned into everyone banging on the table. I let it wash over me. Laughed with them. Felt the weight of 18 months finally lift. Not all at once, but enough to breathe. Later that night, alone on my balcony, coat wrapped tight against the cold, I stared at the skyline. The Apex Tower was still there, lights on every floor like nothing had changed. But everything had. They'd offered me the kingdom I used to dream about. Double salary, equity that could have made me rich in a different life, power over the people who'd humiliated me. And I'd said no. Because the sweetest offer wasn't theirs anymore. It was the one I'd made myself. The one where I chose freedom over forgiveness. The one where I chose power I'd earned, not power they'd condescended to give back. I raised my glass to the city lights.
to the woman who'd walked out of conference room A with nothing but rage and a laptop. She'd won. And damn, it tasted better than any corner office ever could. The phone buzzed once more. Text from Maria. "Proud of you, boss. We're just getting started." I smiled, typed back, "Hell yes, we are." Then I went inside, closed the door on the cold, and got back to work. Because empires don't rest, and neither do I.
Word travels fast in Chicago's corporate corridors, faster than any email chain, quicker than a boardroom whisper. By the time spring rolled around the following year, the story had legs of its own. Not the polished version that ends up in Forbes puff pieces, the raw one. The one women told each other over late-night wine or hurried coffee runs between meetings. You hear what happened at Apex? The VP role they gave to the 20-something? Yeah, the woman they passed over built her own thing and watched the whole place burn. They didn't say my name at first. They didn't have to. But the details matched too perfectly. The conference room announcement, the stolen credit, the quiet exit, the new firm that seemed to magnetize every unhappy client. LinkedIn comments started popping up under my posts, subtle at first. "This hits different. Been there. How do I get out?" Then bolder. DMs landed in my inbox at all hours. Screenshots of toxic performance reviews, stories of credit theft, photos of congratulatory plants left on desks that should have been promotions. I read every one. Not out of pity, out of recognition, because every message was a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. I started responding. Not promises, just conversations. Coffee if they were in the city, a quick call if they weren't. No agenda, just listening. Then when the moment felt right, I'd ask the question that had changed everything for me. What would you build if no one could stop you? Some laughed nervously, some cried. A few got quiet, then fierce. "Something real," one said. "Something that doesn't punish you for being good at your job." That was all I needed. The first hire came from a woman named Carla, 42, 15 years in operations at a Fortune 200 that had restructured her out after she called out inflated projections in a board deck. She showed up to our first meeting with a binder, actual paper, full of ideas she'd never been allowed to present. "They told me I was not collaborative enough," she said, voice study. Translation, I wouldn't play along. I hired her on the spot, director of client strategy, 6-figure salary, equity from day one, no probation, no prove yourself bullshit. She was the first of many. Over the next 12 months, Vanguard Rise grew from 42 to 80 employees. More than half were women who'd been burned the same way, passed over, gaslit, credited last. We didn't have a formal revenge hire policy. We didn't need one. The talent pool was deep because the corporate world had spent years creating it. Every time we posted a role, the applications came with stories attached. We read them all. We hired the best, but we also hired the ones who'd been told they weren't enough. Our culture wasn't soft, it was sharp. No mandatory fun, no forced team-building retreats, just clear expectations. Do the work, own the results, treat people like adults. No one got credit for showing up. Everyone got credit for delivering. And when someone nailed it, we celebrated loud. Bonuses wired same day. Shout-outs in Slack that stayed pinned for weeks. Public credit on client calls so no one could steal it later. We expanded services too. Crisis navigation for companies facing the same vendor meltdowns Apex had caused. Turnaround consulting for firms bleeding talent. Even executive coaching, not the fluffy kind, but the kind that taught women how to document everything, how to build escape hatches, how to walk away without apology. Clients noticed. They didn't just stay, they referred. A procurement director at a major retailer told me over lunch, "I've never seen a firm where the team actually likes each other. It shows in the work." Another CEO said, "You're not just fixing supply chains, you're fixing cultures." I didn't argue. He was right. Meanwhile, the echoes of Apex kept fading. Victor surfaced once in a Crane's Chicago business blurb, something about advising early-stage ventures in the Midwest. The startup was a 3-person app that raised $200K and folded 6 months later. Last photo I saw of him, LinkedIn profile pic, still the same headshot from 2018. Tie too wide, smile too forced. Sarah? She'd pivoted hard. Instagram bio now read, empowerment coach, speaker, helping women rise after setbacks. Her reels were polished, Soft lighting, affirmations over acoustic guitar, captions like, "Your worth isn't defined by a title." She had 12K followers. A few were bots. Most were women who'd never worked a day in corporate ops. She never mentioned Apex, never mentioned me, never apologized. I didn't need one. Their silence was louder than any sorry. One evening in late spring, I stood on the balcony of our new expanded office, 22nd floor now, bigger view, same lake that had watched me rebuild. The team was inside wrapping up happy hour. Laughter spilled through the open door. Someone had put on old school hip-hop, Biggie, low volume, nostalgic. I thought about that Thursday in conference room A, the polite applause, Victor's smug glance, Sarah's hand over heart thank you. I could still feel the heat in my chest, the way my heels had echoed like gunshots when I walked out. Back then, I'd wanted revenge, blood, public humiliation. Now, I wanted something better. I wanted them to see what they'd missed. I wanted every woman who'd been told, "You're not ready," or "We went in a different direction," to look at Vanguard Rise and think, that could be me. I wanted the reckoning to be quiet, structural, permanent. Not a takedown, a takeover, by women who refused to wait for permission anymore. I turned back inside. Maria caught my eye, raised her glass. "To the next 100, she said. I smiled, clinked. "To the ones who come after us." Because the reckoning wasn't about destroying the old guard. It was about making them irrelevant. And as the city lights glittered below, Chicago still moving, still ruthless, still beautiful, I knew we'd done exactly that. They'd underestimated me once. Now the whole industry knew better. And the women coming up behind me, they were already unstoppable. The reckoning was complete. But the story? It was still being written. I stood on the stage at the Chicago Women's Entrepreneurship Summit, late May, the kind of spring day where the lake breeze carries hope instead of chill. The auditorium was packed, 500 women, maybe more, every seat filled, overflow standing along the back walls. Spotlights hot on my face, microphone clipped to my blazer. No notes. I didn't need them anymore. The story had become muscle memory, etched into every breath. The moderator introduced me simply, Elena Reyes, founder and CEO of Vanguard Rise. No long bio, no list of accolades, just the name and the company. That was enough now. I stepped forward. The room hushed like someone had turned down the volume on the city itself. "I'm going to tell you a story," I began. "Not because it's unique, because it's familiar." I told them everything. The Thursday in conference room A, the burnt coffee smell, Victor's smug grin, Sarah's hand over heart thank you, the polite applause that felt like knives, walking out in heels that echoed like gunshots, the nights alone on my apartment floor, typing "They will regret this" into a blank document at 4 a.m., the quiet rage, the paper trail, the first client who jumped ship, the team I built from women who'd been told the same lie, "You're not ready." I told them about the forged spreadsheets, the altered risk assessments, the lawsuit that backfired, the earnings call where the stock tanked 22% while Victor stammered on camera, the day security walked him out, the day Sarah scrubbed Apex from her LinkedIn, the offer to come back, double salary, equity, the corner office I'd once dreamed of, and this single word I gave in reply: no. I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't make it inspirational in that Hallmark way. I made it real. I didn't win by destroying them, I said. I won by becoming undeniable. They thought they broke me. Instead, they freed me. And every time I sign a contract, every time we close a deal, every time one of my team members gets a promotion she actually earned, no politics, no stolen credit, I think of that room. They chose her. I chose myself. The room was silent for a beat. Then the applause started. Slow at first, then building, then roaring. Standing ovation. Whistles. Someone in the front row wiped tears without hiding it. I stepped back from the mic, let it wash over me. Not ego, gratitude.
because I knew half the women in that room had their own version of Conference Room A playing in their heads right now. After the talk, the line formed, women waiting to shake my hand, to say thank you, to ask one question: how did you do it? I answered the same way every time. I stopped waiting for permission. One woman, mid-30s, sharp suit, eyes tired but fierce, pulled me aside. "I'm in the same spot," she whispered. "They just promoted the guy who's been there half the time I have. I'm documenting everything. I'm scared, but I'm ready." I handed her my card. "When you're ready to jump, call me. We're always hiring women who refuse to be invisible." She nodded, walked away taller. That night, back at the office, lights low, city glittering below, I sat with the core team. Pizza boxes open again, champagne flowing. Maria raised her glass to the victory no one saw coming. We clinked, laughed, reminisced about the early days, my apartment as headquarters, late-night Slack pings, the fear that the next client might ghost. Now we had 112 employees, offices in Chicago, Detroit, and a small satellite in Minneapolis. Revenue north of $18 million last year, a pipeline that kept us turning away business we didn't have bandwidth for. We'd acquired 4 companies in 18 months. We were no longer the scrappy underdog. We were the standard. I looked around the room, at Priya negotiating with a new client on her laptop, at Jenna running numbers for the next quarter, at Carla mentoring a new hire who just walked out on her toxic firm 2 weeks earlier. Every single one of them had a story like mine. Every single one had turned pain into power.
Later, alone on the balcony, I stared at the skyline. The apex tower was still there, smaller somehow, dimmer, lights on only a few floors, a skeleton crew keeping the lights on while the board debated bankruptcy protection or a fire sale acquisition. Victor was gone. Sarah was gone. The empire they'd built on stolen credit and broken promises had crumbled under its own weight. I didn't hate them anymore. Hate takes energy I no longer had to spare. I pitied them, maybe, but mostly I was indifferent. They were footnotes now, irrelevant. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Saw your talk tonight. Thank you. I quit today. Starting my own thing tomorrow. Wish me luck." I typed back, "You don't need luck. You've got the fire. Go build something unstoppable." I hit send, smiled into the night. Because that was the real victory. Not the money, not the acquisitions, not the headlines. It was the chain reaction. Every woman who walked out because she finally believed she could. Every firm that hired talent Apex had overlooked. Every culture that shifted because someone proved you could succeed without the toxicity. They underestimated me. They underestimated us. And in doing so, they lit the match. Now the fire was spreading. Quiet, ruthless, beautiful. I closed my eyes, felt the wind off the lake, heard the city hum below, alive, relentless, full of women just like me, who were done waiting. They thought they'd won the day they chose her.
They had no idea they'd handed me and every woman watching the keys to something much bigger. The empire they lost? It was never theirs to begin with. It was always waiting for the women brave enough to claim it. And damn, we look good wearing it. The end? No, just the beginning.